All right. So as I said before, this meeting is to discuss the best practices for advertising LARP, getting the word out there, getting players to attend. You know, Hollywood will tell us that if you build it, they will come. But Hollywood tells a lot of things. In truth, they will come if they know about it, where it is, and when it is. And so let's discuss how we would best tell players when, where, and how, so that they can get onboarded into your game's cultures across the world. I think the obvious means by which we could progress through this topic is by going through kind of physical means and then digital. So discussing physically, I think there's only one thing that really comes to mind, but I invite anybody to speak up if they have other minds, and that's simply flyers for the game. Now, I think a flyer would have, in its best case, a very, oh, someone? Who's raising
I only raised my hand because I'll let you finish, but so continue with what you said, but I just raised my hand because I have something to add when you're done. So
okay, very good. You know, I would think a flyer would be the best physical means. Maybe we can go around the room and see if there's anybody has ideas for where do you put the flyers, though. I think that's probably the more pertinent question for how does somebody find out about it. You know, they're cheap to produce, there's art to it, and let's just go from there. You know, feel free to unmute yourselves and join anytime. We only have about 13 here today. We shouldn't be talking over each other too much.
Okay, so I have unmuted myself to offer a suggestion. One of the things we found success with is we have a couple of kind of like gamer bars here in Vegas, like a place called Millennium Fandom. And we put flyers at that bar with the permission of the owner. We got a couple players from there, but our biggest success for new players was the university. I don't know if anybody's gone that route, but they, you know, a freshman kid from out of town doesn't know a lot of people. LARP is just perfect for them to pick up as a hobby.
Yeah, I would really think the university would be one of the best places. Where did you put it in the university? Where would you typically go to?
Well, we had an agent. The game had an agent who infiltrated the university and put it in the oh gosh, it's been so long since I was in college. But what's it called where you have all the food places and the
Student Life Center, I think.
Yes, it's called something else here, but that's basically what it is. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Quad thing, right?
Right.
Is that what it was? Yeah. So they put them there, and they put them in the rec center, and like I think a place where they did tabletop D&D.
Yeah,
and
I think
we got a fair amount of players from that, new players.
Elizabeth?
Well, when you say flyers, I presume also you mean posters and stuff like that. And what we did for Go Night is we made, for every season, we have made a poster that's kind of lures you in a little bit. It's kind of vague, but it also points you to the website and gives you some vague information, but it's not an essay. It's like a tagline, the logo, and the website and everything. But then we've also done business cards that we've been handing out on like nerd conventions, role-playing conventions, cosplay conventions. And we have also put posters at, maybe not bars, but like we have a few places here in Gothenburg, which is like a community role-playing place where people can bring board games and a place where people can play video games and stuff like that. We've put posters up in that kind of places, and also cafes where you have a lot of younger crowds, or at least in our player group, so 16, 18 and plus. So that's kind of where we put the physical things, but we've kind of limited it to only flyers, business cards, and the Storytellers also has hoodies with the logo and the website on it. But it's not it's more of a thing so they can see that we are the Storytellers at the game, but yeah, we have them.
Anthony?
Yes, partially plugging myself here. For the VR project I'm using, we do have a dedicated space for posters. So if anybody wants to toss me their posters, ideally A4 format, I would be happy to put them up in a digital means. That way, if somebody walks into my thing, doesn't like it, and goes, oh, wait a minute, I'm near Vegas. Hey, something on the wall. So those hit me up on the side if you're interested in posting.
Yeah, that's a wonderful offer, Anthony. I think that's the thing with LARP is that once a person starts doing it, they tend to want to do it a lot. And so, there's never really competition between games because there's very few games that are running weekly anymore. So there's always more spaces in the month. So as long as they're not directly conflicting, they're not in competition by any means. Kim.
So what my husband and I, we typically go to a bunch of conventions locally throughout the New York and northeastern Pennsylvania area. And a lot of these small conventions, several of them are at universities. So we'll actually take out a fan table and use that for promoting the game. And that's where we have our posters. Occasionally, I would actually print out little brochures so I could say, here's what we have for the story so far. If this hooks you, we have a Facebook page. We, when we were the ones in charge of our local By Night Studios game, we also had a Facebook group where people could, share memes and connect and stuff. And it was a way of drawing people in. So definitely universities, huge places. And especially if you search out like those little university run gaming conventions, those are where I've found some of the best players, especially at least within the SUNY system, a lot of awesome people.
Yeah, very good point. Mike.
I'll have to agree with everything that's been said so far. First of all, we use local conventions here. We run special one-off events periodically, and those are bringing new players. One of the things that was most effective for us is we printed our own business cards, right? You can see, but on the back side, it's a specialized item. Turn it in, everyone gets one. You get something cool your first event, and we also made ways for players to earn these by doing geocaching stuff around Los Angeles as they were learning more about the place where they lived and where their characters lived. And so finding unique ways to get players in is great too. Like that actually helped a lot. Surprising. We were leaving those with our flyers at different game stores and at conventions, and it got us lots of contact. So
Mark.
So yeah, a lot of the stuff's been said so far, 100%. We've got something coming up called Hampshire HorrorCon. So it's what we're going to do there is we're going to the crew's going to turn up in character. We've got a booth and we're all going to be in costume and stuff like that, and we'll have all the information about the game so people can come and not only see what the game could be, but kind of get that kind of interaction as well if they wanted it. So it's kind of like a soft start. Also as well, don't be afraid, guys, to brand. So you can very easily get merchandise as in t-shirts and stuff like that now. Where of course the companies get a larger cut, but you can get something for yourself. It's a way of getting some money into the projects, but it's also a way of getting your name out there, because I think it's called 7 points of contact is something that everybody should be aware of, which is, you're trying to get people to see your branding basically 7 times, and if they see it 7 times and they like your branding 7 times, you've got them. They buy your merchandise, they come get involved and stuff like that. So yeah, basically that's my kind of input on it.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Mark. Tandy.
So one of the ones kind of encompasses both of them, but it's QR codes.
Yeah.
Plaster them everywhere. And then another one that like I haven't heard mentioned before is coasters. Like you guys go to afters after your games, or if there's a pub that you guys go to, or a bar or a restaurant, man, go get a whole bunch of coasters printed. They're cheap. They're anywhere from 10 to 50 cents a piece, depending on the design and how in depth you want to go. But yeah, throw that in front of everybody's face when they're eating, and they will remember you.
So let me summarize kind of the ideas that have been submitted so far and see if we have any more to add to that. We have flyers and posters serving the same kind of purpose, with the locations of the university, kind of quad or student life kind of center type thing that whatever they might have at the university in your area. We have the idea of business cards. Further, Mike's mentioned having the business cards have a direct in-game effect. I think, and Wayne could speak to this as well. I was looking to see if I had one in my wallet, but I don't. Orlando by Night used to do that too. With it, they used business cards as blood and willpower trackers for the games, and then people would snip them. And I thought that was brilliant. It always gave the address out. Then we have the idea of the coasters and other kind of, I think, basic memorabilia type stuff that can get a person to remember that the game's around, because what we're trying to achieve is those 7 points of contact that Mark mentioned. So that a person recognizes the game and comes back to it. Alex, go ahead.
Another thing I forgot to mention that we do that I didn't hear come up is we have a very large military base nearby Vegas, and a large number of LARP players over the years have been veterans. It's a great place for young soldiers to kind of like blow off steam, but in a safe way, not necessarily going to get in any trouble coming to a LARP game. So it's a kind of like it's definitely another recruiting ground besides the university to focus on.
Yeah, I've always remarked that too, that there's a remarkable number of military veterans who LARP, especially online, especially during deployment, has been very common, I've seen. Tandy?
Yeah.
Yeah, your hand is raised.
I didn't raise it.
Oh, well, never mind.
I mean, I guess yeah. No,
never mind
sorry.
then. Elizabeth, your hand is raised. Oh, well, I guess we're done with this topic then.
No, wait. There we go. One thing we actually have, it's not really a memorabilia thing, but it's part of our safety system, where we have different kinds of bands for your wrist or for your arm, with at least the small one with our logo on it. And this one signals that you're always, if you wear this at the LARP, it signals that you're always open for physical interactions like fighting and stuff like that, instead of having to give a thumbs up. And a lot of players actually wear these outside of the game just because they think they're cool or they remind them of the LARP. So it has the logo, which can be also a conversation starter. If someone sees the logo and it's like, oh, what's that? So it's not really a memorabilia thing that has our logo on it. So yeah, that can be used too.
Something that's pretty cool that BNS is going to put out soon that I'd like to just kind of announce here is we're going to have a digital art package that folks can download from our website that has the Dark Pack stuff already included on it and can serve as a template for flyers for anybody who wants to use that in the future. We've already got that ready. We're going to probably release it next week. Okay, so we've talked about what I think is kind of the more obvious and in some ways easier, but also more work intensive version, which is the physical kind of advertising. Let's jump into the more probably prevalent these days and also trickier digital advertising. Do you all want to start with social media, do you think, or do we want to go into kind of more website and things like that? I'll tell you what, let's just do social media and go from there. It seems to me that the majority of games have a pretty strong social media presence. I recall when I was on staff, at least for Orlando by Night, that was how a lot of people found out about the game. Wayne, if you're there and you could talk to that, that would be great.
I mean, right now isn't the best time to talk about that because we haven't really been promoting the game online because we don't actually have a game right now, except for what we manage on Discord. We're still hesitant to start having live gatherings with everything going on with COVID. But we are still mainly spreading our game through word of mouth. This month alone, I got 5 new players integrated into the game. We're still holding out and around the 40s as our player numbers, and we're hoping to start hopefully June or July with the live game and then start pushing to increase our numbers slowly.
Yeah, that's a good point. And nobody would fault anybody for not holding games during the middle of the pandemic. I mean, that's only natural. You know, with the vaccine coming out, we hope that we can get started sooner rather than later, but you know, safety is the first precaution, because if it's not safe, people aren't going to appreciate us for being out there and having our games running. So one of the things I'd like to draw attention to is oh, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Yeah, what I would say is when you kind of like sort everything up and like, oh, so should we talk about social media or website? I would say that those two kind of in a sense go hand in hand, because like people usually find you via social media, which is probably easier because it can appear in your feed or whatever, or on YouTube, or if you watch one vampire video and then you might have ended up on Stuff Happened to Vampire by Night or whatever, it's that's kind of how it works. But then you eventually go to the website anyway, so I think they kind of go hand in hand in a sense, even though usually social media is where it begins, because that's usually where people end up. If they don't see a poster and go directly to the website, they usually find it through like a friend sending a link or whatever. So, I mean, I'm down for talking about the website too, but if we keeping them separate, it's fine. So, yeah.
I think there's an important point to note about the value of a Discord server for the game, even if it's not an IC Discord server. And I've mentioned this in the World of Darkness official Discords, kind of like the partners channel. I've said it to all the various people who are members of the World of Darkness, like so on and so forth, like Justin Achille and folks. And what I said was that it seems to me that the largest of all the games, meaning Vegas, obviously Las Vegas by Night, Orlando by Night, so on and so forth, all have a substantial Discord presence. And my theory on that is that it's what would be understood in a business term as a just-in-time effect. Mark, you mentioned that there was a 7 points of contact. I like that a lot, but I think there's another kind of concept to that, in that if your 7 points of contact, let's say it was fulfilled, but it was on the weekend after your game had run, that means you've got a full month potentially, or less, or more, between your next game. And in that time between, do you have a way for a player to interact with the game in a substantive way? I think that would be the most important question, because without that way to interact substantively, with the game, you might lose that person in between that month. They might be perfectly willing to come, but they'll forget about it in a month. Does that all make sense? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Kim.
When we had our local By Night Studios game, we actually had a full-on website with forums directly attached. And after interacting with Miami by Night, I actually really liked the Discord version a lot better for accessibility and ease of play compared to having like a dedicated forums, because it's a lot easier from a management standpoint to work with Discord versus trying to figure out, exactly how to do the HTML stuff for forums and stuff like that. But it really helped for getting people to do scenes in between games, to plan out their downtimes, to keep that interaction going. And it's one of the things that I actually really enjoy about Miami by Night when I first started as a player, was that there was always a little something going on, even between dedicated game days.
I think that having a Discord is somewhat essential. I think also having very strict policies around, if you're not going to have staff that's going to manage it all the time, I wouldn't allow role play all the time necessarily. But I would always have it open because of that just-in-time effect. That's my personal opinion, of course. Mike.
Yeah, I can speak to this, as having run a Discord server for my game prior to the pandemic. We stopped using it because it became 24/7 role play, with or without staff there, and that created all kinds of problems. But if you're utilizing whatever way you're utilizing your online services to keep your players interested, that's the most important thing. So we stopped using our Discord server. It's not effective now. Since we moved to a gather.town methodology, which I think I mentioned in our last meeting,
Yeah.
which is the online meeting section. So players can technically go in anytime, but all we ask is that if you guys want to role play, you can do soft role play. Just request an ST to be present and schedule with us, and we'll be present for it. And we have role play at least once a week. On top of that, we utilize Facebook Messenger group chat for all of our out of character stuff. So constant data is flowing. That chat spins every day, which tells me the players are always interacting in and out of character. So we have that kind of thing constantly. So the Discord server is not necessary as is for Discord, but as long as you have interaction, like we talked about, you have players who are doing things. So my folks are constantly discussing their downtimes when they're not at game, and what they're doing for the next game, and what mods they want to go on together, how they're going to schedule stuff in between to do that with story staff. It works out really well. And so, I mean, like today, there's been a 45-minute pause. No one's posted anything for 45 minutes in the Facebook chat, and I'm kind of concerned. That's how much it spends. So, that's the thing. As long as you're engaging your players, it doesn't matter what the service is. I just find that things like Discord that are on 24/7 attract 24/7, and then you're gonna have either staff burned out, players burned out, or problems will happen. So you have to kind of have a constant monitoring, or you're gonna have to schedule time to do role play.
One thing that's really useful with Discord is the option for like server roles and stuff like that. So you can have like an IC section and an OOC section, and in your IC section, you have no posting unless it's like a scheduled game time, so people aren't doing that 24/7, and then you've still got the ability to like keep everything where you can see it, and like all the organization, but you don't have like people trying to go when a storyteller's not there. And I've had really good experiences on games that have basically like they've been on Discord and they've been like game time, and then there's a couple scheduled social games over the course of the month, or there's a couple scheduled scenes over the course of the month, but they're just basically scheduled and opened as needed. And then outside of that, there's just the OOC section that people will go through. And like, yeah, it's so accessible. I could definitely see where it gets overwhelming and where people start overusing it, but I think it's mostly just like the idea of making sure that there are very clear set limits there.
Yep. Yeah.
And occasionally just turning on a role in the entire category that says, sorry, players, you can't post IC right now because it is not an IC time.
Yeah, I think always having staff monitoring is kind of almost guaranteedly have to be a thing, especially if you're going to count it as hard RP. I see that Wayne's raised his hand, and also Alex. So let's go with Wayne, then Alex.
Just to the point, because our game right now is essentially a 24/7 online Discord game in the absence of being able to have a live action game. Recently, we moved to a new online policy that I made up, where we define rooms to have different interactions. Like there's public rooms, there's semi-private rooms, and there's private rooms. Because one of the things that we got is, as you mentioned, when you have the 24/7 players, it is going to lead to staff burnout, and there's a whole bunch of other players that just they don't want to deal with this. Like, I've got a job, I've got kids, I don't want you, burning down my haven every 5 minutes. So with separating it out like that, I've seen a lot of players coming in, some of the more casual players coming in, but kind of staying in their safe zones, like the Tremere Chantry, or they stay down in the Nosferatu Warrens, and they interact with their clan or maybe their coterie. But then the 24-hour guys, they are constantly button heads in the more public rooms. I just have seen success in that. So throwing it out there.
Thank you, Wayne. That's very helpful. Alex?
Yeah, I would actually echo Wayne. One of the reasons we run the Discord game is basically to kind of hold the community together and give them some kind of distraction during the pandemic. Our method is we have game time, which is the only time when your powers function. Everything else is soft RP in the Discord. And the 24/7 players, the people who like that 24/7 game, even when we're in live play and play in chat or whatnot without any oversight, they go to the Discord and they have kind of public things. And I've noticed that even the people who don't like playing Discord do enjoy watching some of these conversations and checking them out. So it's like a different game for everybody. I think there's probably a good let 1,000 flowers bloom policy with this type of thing.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, and I see Elise's point here. I'm a big fan of the 24/7 soft RP. Gives me a chance to meet those characters more and learn about them during a game I might not be able to. Yeah, absolutely. I understand that. Chris, before I go into, I see that some new folks have joined us as we've been going along. Since you didn't have a chance to introduce yourselves, let's go ahead and do that now. I think Colleen.
Hi, I'm Colleen. Nice to meet y'all. I am one of the writing staff folks at BNS. And yay games. I'm mostly on mute because my dog is very talkative today. Hi. And I'm sorry I was running late there. Is there anything in the introductions that I was supposed to catch that I missed?
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. We're
All
just
right,
a quick intro, just to say hi.
Hi,
Thank you
guys.
so much for recording.
The next I have here is Matthew Costa.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just a game enthusiast, seeing what's going on.
Well, glad to have you, Matt. Board gamer.
What's that?
Board gamer.
I do a little bit of board games. Then we have the LARP. Just try to stay entertained.
Actually, I meant we have someone in the chat called Board Gamer.
Oh, I am not aware of that.
No worries.
Oh, hello. Yeah, sorry. I'm here as well. I'm just sort of listening on. I'm friends with Mark White. Just sort of catching up on what you guys are talking about, really.
You sound like you'd be friends with Mark White.
Well, thanks. I take that as a horrible slight.
Wait, is this Alex?
No, this is Richard.
Oh.
But why? Who's Alex? Is he handsome?
No, you just had a very similar voice, like the tone and accent and everything. It's a very nice accent.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And then Maggie.
Hello, I am Maggie. I am the venue ST for Vampire and OBN.
Hey, Maggie. Thanks so much for joining us. I know that you have a busy night running you guys' game later tonight.
I get to be the prince of that game.
Yes, you do.
I should not be prince. Whose idea was this? I don't know, but it was a mistake.
I could not agree more.
I love those moments where you're just like, someone should have told me no, like,
yeah,
3 months
You
ago.
see that
but no
Torador
one has
doing
told
lines
me
off of
no.
Slipper's ass? Let's make that person Prince.
Let's jump to Mike Lesh, and then we'll go with Chris for wrapping up the social media talk.
Hey everybody, I'm Mike. Just hanging out before going out, so see what's going on.
Mike also helps us with fulfillment in By Night Studios. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mike.
warehouse junkie. Somebody's got to do the front work.
Chris.
I was just going to say about we have 24-hour play, although we have specified game days and social nights as well, but we allow people to role play the entire time. And I do think it's entertaining. I know that there are several people that really enjoy reading all of it's like novels. It's like getting to watch novels go by as they're being made. And then we have players that only show up for game days and really enjoy that. So I think as long as you can manage it, that the 24-hour players aren't burning through your plot and nobody else gets to do plot, and that your game day players don't feel like they've just completely missed out on what becomes an actual 24/7 game, that you can do the 24/7 gaming, the soft RP and the hard RP pretty well, and it's a lot of fun.
So I think that's an excellent point, and I think it all depends on how you set up the game too. If you have it set up in kind of a traditional mind's eye theater fashion, I think that it's harder. I think OBN has put as much work into finding a way to do so as anyone in the world. And if there were a model that I would go with, it would probably be theirs if I were going to try that. I probably wouldn't try it because I think it's very tiring. And I think Maggie and Wayne would agree with me on that. But if that's what you want to do for your game and it's something that works for your game, then great. I think the way Miami by Night does it is a little bit simpler because there's more consent based between sessions, and that makes things a lot easier because you don't have to worry about PvP between players during a game, during a 3 a.m. in the morning, people raiding each other's havens, as I am very certain has happened in Miami, or excuse me, in Orlando by Night. In fact, I may have done it myself at least on one occasion. That said, moving on to the next point, and this is the point that I asked Wayne to be here especially for it, which is to talk about the idea of using the IC as a form of advertisement for the game. So taking the things that are produced IC and then using them to attract and bring new people to check out the hobby. And I think that occurs in kind of two main formats. One is from photos taken at game. I love that a lot of people dressed up for today. If I weren't getting on the road for 4 hours after this call, I would have done so myself. But I think that that's one of the coolest things about LARP is the costuming. And so using photos in your kind of places that you're at, your social media or your website or your Discord, it doesn't matter where really, as a means of enticing people to play because they're like, oh, I want to dress up. That sounds fun. And then the second, and I think this one is one that has kind of a dual purpose, and that's those kind of IC Harpy reports. Now, you may not be running Vampire, and then you're going to say to me, well, we don't have a Harpy in our game. Or you may not be running Camarilla at least. And you'll say, we're not going to do it. But Wayne, you were the Harpy for about a year, and you produced some of the best, most conclusive Harpy reports that I ever seen. I still show people those today because they're so fun. Could you tell us a little bit about kind of what you did to create them and what the policies around how OBN handles that for everybody? And if anybody else wants to chime in afterwards with ideas of what's working in their game, that would be great too.
Really the secret to those Harpy reports that you saw was actually just me getting into my character. I was a very nosy Nosferatu, and I like to hint that I knew a bunch of stuff. So that was really the driving force behind them. But we do get a lot of people that'll come into the game, and first thing they do is we'll start to go back and read the last few months of Harpy reports. Try to when I was doing it, I tried to keep them funny. I would use little I would find pictures that were relevant to the plot and like download them. Like, for example, we had one person that modeled their character off Derek Zoolander from the Zoolander movies. So of course I found a whole bunch of memes and was putting those into the Harpy reports when they came around. But really I just tried to keep it fun, and then other people behind me saw my forum and kept it going. And I'm also very fortunate that we have a player in our game that's very good at coding, who's able to keep the darknessascending.org website going for us and help us get everything over and formatted correctly. Big secret to our success is one of our players named Justin, who does a whole lot of work for us behind the scenes.
Yeah, Justin actually works for BNS now as well. I don't know if you knew that, Wayne. He's the technology manager of the SRD. Very cool. So all that said, I want to say that BNS is producing kind of a template Discord server, as well as a template WordPress site. The WordPress site's going to take us a little longer to put out there for the community to use if they so choose. Anthony, are you saying something? You're muted.
Nope, that's a negative. I am typing away furiously, and I might be mouthing my words as my type.
David here has something in the chat, and then I'll go to Elizabeth, then Kim. A member of my game would record audio of the game, a short description of what happened during the game, and post it on Facebook and YouTube. Worked great to get players new and old interested. That sounds like a wonderful idea. How did they record the audio, David? If you could just post that as a follow-up.
I can actually talk about that if you would like.
Yeah, if you would.
I can unmute myself. Hi, David Petro. I actually run the nonprofit organization After Twilight Productions and run one of our LARPs in that game, and that is After the Ashes. So what he would do is he would just, while he was at the game, he would take notes, and then he would go home and, as per any podcast, just record his character talking about the notes that he had seen, what he had seen done. And then he would put music and whatnot to it, and then actually post it up on Facebook and also on YouTube.
Thank you. Thank you, David. I think I would look a little further into how I would do that in games that I'm a part of staff for, because I think that's a really good idea. Kim.
So what I actually did when I joined Miami by Night is the character that I first brought in is actually in character a DJ. And I am lucky enough that my husband actually trained me properly for being on air for WHRW Binghamton. And he's been on air for 25 plus years as part of the community-based radio through Binghamton University. And I actually used that and I have a decent mic set up, and I actually created what would be accurate on-air broadcasts, borrowing because VUN Miami actually is based out of University of Miami and is the exact same number as Binghamton. So it's 90.5. So I actually just made my own station IDs. I made in-game ads for the different player run businesses. And I went ahead and I just ran it with actual broadcasting requirements, recorded the whole thing in a single take, and I put it up on SoundCloud.
Yeah, I've seen those shows. They're awesome.
Thank you.
Elizabeth.
So the main two things we have done to both, like you talked about, costuming and get people interested in the LARP, besides posters and stuff like that, is besides having a cool website. I mean, that always helps to have a good, well-designed website. But we every year, besides now because of COVID, we pulled together a few of the willing players, and most of them are, to produce a trailer for the game. And we write a little story, and we produce at least if you ask me, pretty well put together story for what we have, or a cool trailer, put some cool music on it, and make people just feel the mood of the World of Darkness. And those trailers have worked very well for us to pick up new people, because people find it, they're like, what is this? I want more. And then they go to the website and they're like, oh, this is something I can take part in. What we also do is kind of similar to the Harpy Report thing, but more from the human side. Before every LARP, we publish a first page of a newspaper, which is made to look almost identical to the local Gothenburg paper, but as a parody, not the same name and everything. And we put in news articles. Some of them are red herrings, and some of them are when the kindreds fuck up, and some of them are plot details. And no one is really sure what is, which always is really funny when people print these out and glue them on a normal paper and bring them to the game, and are really frantically trying to figure out what is this meaning. It's and we are sort of like, that's just a joke, but people don't know. And those things have actually ended up on other places, and people are like, what is this? It's apparently a LARP, and we of course put the website and everything. So if these gets sent around, people will track them back to us. So yeah.
I see that Min has mentioned that they hidden plot in the radio shows before, and it's an awesome way to introduce plot hooks. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Foreshadowing is great for plot hooks. In fact, I used it myself for what I would call Kupola's back plot, which I had referenced a plane disappearing over the Bermuda Triangle in the radio show months in advance, and then eventually, much later, brought it back into a real plot. And I think that helps a lot with people's uptake and reception of plots. That should be for certain a later roundtable discussion talk, is how do we make a great game? But I just want to reference something. I think it's something I probably should have mentioned at the beginning, is that we can all agree that word of mouth is going to always be the strongest means of getting a player to your game. But what I would encourage is the thought that having good word of mouth will be augmented and accelerated by having good advertisement. Because if you have good advertisement, it's clear even to the players of your game itself who would recommend it, that you're trying to find people to attend and be a part of the game. So those players might be very well likely to bring somebody in, but if they don't see it as a priority of staff to bring in other people, are they really going to make that recommendation? Possibly, if they want that person there very badly, but I think they'd be a little bit more apt to it if they see it regularly from the game itself, and if they have good resources that they can point to and show it off. Mark.
Cool. I was just going to say in regards to like the social media side of stuff, so I'm just going to take you that. So yeah, in regards to the social media side of stuff, oh, that's fantastic. So the kind of the videos that people are producing for like adverts for their games is fantastic, because it's what kind of drew me in years ago when I saw like Convention of Thorns. You've got Desert of Shadows, you've got Go Nights one, you've got Minsk by Night, there's a LARP in Singapore, which have these fantastic in-character videos. And if you're trying to kind of show in theory like what the LARP is like, what to expect, or why it differs from tabletop, you can show them those videos, and you can literally go, hey, just check this out, doesn't this look cool? And that's a way to bring people in. It's also a great way to advertise your game. So one of the things I was going to say tonight, just going to get on a sort of stool here, is signal boosting. So I can go through the analytics and stuff like that and show you, but when people create content and stuff like that, like myself and others, we're very small in the social media. We don't have a large impact. Our impact comes from individuals like yourself who see our videos and share our videos, who post them on Instagram, or on Twitter, or Facebook groups and stuff like this, who encourage their friends to share them. By doing that, you yourself, not only exposing that video, but you're also encouraging other people, like I say, that look at those, to then look at your game and ask questions about that. So there is no harm at all of us promoting all of us. And in regards to that, I was going to kind of offer, as you guys know, I've done some interviews and stuff like that. What I was going to ask, if anybody here wants to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to do an interview with you where you can talk all about your LARP, talk about what ideas you have and all the rest of it, and then I can put that on the channel. And it'd be a means for us to keep that kind of, as I say, that social media presence going. So if you're interested at all, it'll literally be as simple as we just meet up on Zoom, we chat about your LARP, and then that will go on YouTube, and we can signal boost, all of us can signal boost that, and then everybody can see it, etc., etc. So just going to put that out there.
Cool. Well, that's a wonderful offer, Mark, and thank you for doing that. And of course, everybody, if you need Mark's contact info after this and you want to get in touch with him about that, feel free to come through us. I'm sure that everybody knows us at least, and we can get you to him if you don't already have it. I'd like to talk about some kind of other ideas that I don't see a lot of games implementing, with notable exception of the org games. And I think it is one of the org games' probably greatest strengths is that they do this regularly. And it's something I don't see in a lot of troops. I know we don't have a lot of org game representatives here, a few, but not as many as the troops. So let me suggest this to everyone, that it's something that maybe it could be implemented in a lot of places. And that's simply regular emails. Simply an email reminding folks that there's a game coming. Let me ask, to kind of just go around the room, who does that, and who doesn't do it now? And do you think it would be something that could be added fairly simply? Just, hey, reminder, our next game is coming. at X. You know, for a lot of people, that would be very helpful. Because I know myself, I play in dozens of these games. I can't possibly remember when their regular schedule is. And so if you told me to come to a game, if I didn't see it at like the day of the game, I didn't come. But if I had an email, I might remember. That's just simply my thought. I also think that there's something to be said for an email that calendar invites. That's a great point, David. That'd be another. I think I'd be a little cautious to, well, no, I don't know if I'd be cautious. It would depend on what kind of server I was using for the email list. If I had Outlook, I would use a calendar invite. I don't know if I would on some of the others. But another concept would be a thank you email after people attend the game. So you've got a registration list and people are signing on to it. Once they've signed on, you already have their emails because they're attending your game, presumably in a registered fashion. Why not send them an email that says, hey, thank you for coming. Do you have any feedback for us? Then give them a feedback, please. Welcome message, you know, or a welcome message. The first time somebody registers, send them something like that. I don't see a lot of games doing that. And I would just like to suggest that it's probably a good idea. I've got like 6 emails from Domino's in my inbox right now. If Domino's can do it, we can too. It's my thought. Would anybody like to kind of pitch in on that or say, Ryan, you're crazy and wrong? Oh, Alex, you raised your hand.
Yeah, we do use things like calendar and group invites. We used to use email, but we didn't find a lot of interaction with it. Whereas on some of these event invite things, you can see some dialogue, you can put more information in and segment it. But before we move on to this completely, I wanted to talk about one of the tactics we've found very effective in recruiting players. We have a photographer come into games once every 2 months. And what I do is I put the photographs from that event on the Instagram feed. And then from the Instagram feed, best performing photos become part of our marketing software or marketing campaign. So we take the things that do best on Insta, and then that is the most effective in terms of recruitment. And from each advertising thing, we get 5 to 10 players every time, minimum 5, 10's probably an average. But yeah, we tried the email thing, but it didn't work for us as well as event invites.
Yeah, I think an event invite's a great idea. Also, maybe a Facebook event invite. I know that OBN used to do that a lot, and it was very helpful for me to remember when the game was going on. Elizabeth.
Yeah, we actually also take in-game photos, and we sadly can't do it every time, of course, because it's not always we can have a photographer on hand. But the cool thing, every time we do, we notice that our players have a tendency to share the ever-living crap out of when their character shows up and like, oh, there was that cool scene, and then they of course share it because they want to show their LARP friends. So those kind of things usually get a lot of spread. And we also always, of course, check with the players that they are fine with us putting them up online before. But we have noticed that when we put up in-game photos, people share the crap out of them because people love showing other people what they have done at the LARP. So yeah, in-game photos are great.
Yeah, and I see some folks mentioning in our chat the idea that we should always have a photo release before putting anyone's photo on the internet. Yeah, of course. I think that almost goes without saying, and that you'd always want to have, you know, somewhere in check-in, you'd have that done, or when they first registered for the game, for sure. And you know, not everyone will sign it, and you know, maybe you have to have a you know, some kind of band or something that indicates to the people who are taking the photos of the ones they shouldn't use. But I do think a photo release is very important to that. Mark.
So I was just going to add something in regards to the photos and stuff like that. I think it's fantastic because it promotes, you know, encourage people to get, you know, to improve their costume and to, you know, take their awesome pictures. Everybody likes to have that like little moment of fame and stuff. But I would, if possible, I would ask you guys, when that person had that picture taken of that costume, if you do advertise it, is there any chance you could also say where they got their costume from, how they made it, ideas for costuming and stuff like that, because I've looked around at some of your photos from some of your LARPs and I've been blown away by the level of detail in some of the costumes and all the rest of it. And it would be fantastic to know, you know, where I could direct my players and say, oh yeah, there's this fantastic online store that does XYZ. You can get some stuff from here, or et cetera, et cetera. So I was just going to say, you know, if you guys are promoting those pictures and stuff like that at your games, is there any chance we could also promote how to make those costumes, if you see what I mean, as well, just as a thing?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Mark. And I think that's another one of those kind of concepts of having something that's, you know, something that you could say in marketing is something that's educational as well, draws more attention typically, because people recognize it as value rather than an advertisement. Now, naturally, a good photo is its own value to itself, but adding even more just makes it more valuable and people pay more attention to it, for sure. Well, we're coming here to the end of our time today, and I'd like to just go around the room and see if anybody has any final concluding thoughts. If not, we'll wrap it up here. And I will say thank you again, everyone, for making it out. We have people from, I think, 5 different countries, the biggest cities in the United States, all across the world, really. And it's just wonderful that you all made time this, afternoon for me, evening for others, early afternoon for others. So thank you. All right, looks like nobody has a final thought for us for today. So let's wrap it up here. We'll be, Elizabeth.
I'm just gonna jump over to the Discord if anyone wants to talk some shit, if anyone's up for it. So I'm just gonna see you there after we close the call.
Yes, I was just about to say that myself. We will be on our Discord, probably chatting for a little bit. I know that some of you have games to run virtually later tonight, so I expect to see you there. Discord link, Elise, if you would get that for Anthony. And Anthony, you had one last thing.
Yes, for your car ride, if you find yourself on a straightaway without a whole lot of traffic, take your shoes off for a few minutes while on cruise control.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. All right, again, thank you everyone for joining us today. And like I said, you should expect a whole bevy of different resources from By Night Studios over the next week that are intended to make all these things easier, including a Facebook post how-to, or Facebook page how-to, a Discord template server, a WordPress template server that are not next week, probably a little bit after that, as well as kind of template welcome, thank you, and our next game is X kind of emails as well. All that's going to be available next week. It's all going to be free. You just go to our website, you'll be able to download it. If it's something that you want to use, by all means use it. If not, no problem at all. All right, thank you again, everyone, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.